My alarm didn't go off. I wasn't feeling too good. I didn't have enough time. My kid was sick. All of these are excuses we hear in our daily lives, and while some of them are legitimate, when it comes to the gospel and evangelism and sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ, do we really have any excuses? That's what we're going to talk about today in this session. Stay tuned. For I am not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God for salvation to everyone who believes, to the Jew first, and also to the Greek. For in it the righteousness of God is revealed from faith for faith, as it is written, the righteous shall live by faith. That is Romans chapter 1, verses 16 through 17. Hello everyone, this is Marty Garcia with Community Baptist Church in Victoria, Texas. Today we're going to continue our study of the Gospel and Personal Evangelism. This is session 2, Why We Don't Evangelize. I remember a time when, long ago, about 8 years ago or so, I was still a young Christian. I was street witnessing on Rio Grande. If you're familiar with Victoria, you might know where this is at. It was on Rio Grande, over where the old bus station used to be by the railroad tracks. Well, I'm there holding signs and trying to stir people onto at least thinking about Christ, and for those that do know Christ, to encourage them. I remember being by the railroad tracks, and I happened to see a train come by, which was nothing out of the ordinary. And the train started to slow down. It got slower and slower, and I just happened to look over, and it was going very slow, creeping almost. And I saw this train car that was completely black, and there was this, what I would say is a demonic looking skull type of image, and it was covering nearly the entire train car. And I thought that was crazy that here I am witnessing, and then this thing is like staring at me, trying to intimidate me. Again, just bear with me. I'm taking this somewhere. I just thought that was very intimidating. I was intimidated to almost stop doing what I was doing, but I continued because I knew that the gospel needed to be shared, and then people need to know Christ. So the point of that, well, why did I share that? Well, the point of it is that in the good times, we should evangelize and share the gospel. In the bad times, we should evangelize and share the gospel. We should not let our circumstances diminish our efforts to evangelize. 2 Timothy 4:2, preach the word in season and out of season. So the good times and the bad times, we should constantly be sharing the gospel and evangelizing. Now, we left the last session by saying, what are our top 3 reasons for not evangelizing? And I asked you to come up with the top 3, and I can tell you what mine are. Mine are fear of rejection, fear of how they may react to me, and a fear of being mocked. So that's basically the reasons I don't evangelize, is for those 3 things. What were yours? Feel free to leave them in the comment section down below if you'd like. By the end of this video, my goal is that we put to death these excuses that so often plague our evangelistic efforts. So Dr. Mark Dever describes the most common excuses that he's heard, and these are the top 5. So basic excuse number 1 is I don't know their language. And it is a pretty good excuse. I'll tell you something interesting that just happened to me today. I had a gentleman that works for me, that works with me. He came up to me and he asked me, he said, now he speaks Spanish, and I don't speak very good Spanish. So he came up to me and told me in Spanish that he was having trouble. And he said, I know you're a guy that goes to church a lot, so I wanted to ask for your advice. And I said, whoa. I said, first of all, I said, 1, I'm not a pastor, so I can't counsel you, but I can help you, because he was looking for help. So he said, okay, that's fine, I understand. So he described a situation to me that he's going through, and I did the best I could to try to understand what he was saying, and I think I was able to do that by the grace of God, by his provision. I kind of took him to the Bible and said what the Bible says, and I was able to share the gospel with him in Spanish for the most part. The only thing I really said was Jesucristo es Salvador. That's all I could really say. So I was trying to point him to Christ, but what's the point of that is that there's no excuse for us to say that. That's not a good excuse to say I don't know their language. We have so many tools. We have like Google Translate. There's so much literature. There's Bibles that are printed in other languages. I carry sometimes. I love Chinese food, so I mean I don't know if you can tell or not, but I do. And there's times I'll take a Chinese tract with me. And if there's a conversation that kind of strikes up, I'll try to hand them one of the tracts, in their language. So I don't know if they're Cantonese or Mandarin or what have you, but the point is that not knowing a language is not a good enough excuse. We have so much technology at our hands, so much information available to us. I know there's over 7,000 languages, but I don't know their language is not a good enough excuse. So basic excuse number 2 is evangelism is illegal. And this is a good one, really, because no one wants to break the law, per se, right? But here in the U.S., we're really not facing that challenging excuse just yet. We're experiencing maybe a soft persecution, if you will, but nothing compared to what is going on around the world in countries where evangelism is illegal. And like Dr. Mark Dever says, you may get to evangelize, but it'll be only once. But we do have a scriptural antithesis for this excuse, and that's found in Acts chapter 4, verses 1 through 4. For the sake of time, I'll just go ahead and give you the verses to look at, and you can read that on your own. Acts chapter 4, verses 1 through 4 and 17 through 20 basically says, when the Judaizers were coming to Peter and John and telling them to not preach in the name of Jesus anymore, their response was simply, we got to obey God in this matter. When it comes to our faith and when it comes to Christ, when it comes to honoring the Lord and following his commandments and doing what he's commanded us to do, we have to be obedient to him rather than man. If a law tells you that Christianity is illegal, we don't stop being Christians because of that, because we know what Christ has done for us. So evangelism is illegal is not an excuse to not evangelize. And by the way, let's be sure to pray for our brothers and sisters around the world that are suffering persecution right now, that the gospel may go forth in these times of opposition. Basic excuse number 3, that it might cause problems at work. This is a good one because you don't want to upset anybody at work, right? You don't want to share the gospel and have them potentially upset. Maybe they tell their boss on you that you're doing these things and cause friction between you. You don't want to be unproductive at work, right? You don't want to take 30 minutes to share the gospel or however long you need to take to share the gospel with somebody and stop them from what they're doing and make them unproductive, right? Well, the truth is we really don't have this excuse either. Like I said, with literature, so much literature on hand, we can hand out a tract, or we can hand out a flyer, or we can invite someone to church. There's a lot of other things we can do to where we don't cause disruption and to where we get the gospel out. Now, the truth is the gospel does cause friction. It's going to cause friction, no matter if you take 5 minutes or 5 hours to explain it. It is going to cause friction. So that's something we need to understand. We need to be prepared to really look at, is that we are going to experience friction. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. That is going to happen, but we still need to get the gospel out. And like I said, there's so many ways we can do that. So, basic excuse number 4, other things seem more important. Kids got to eat, right? Bills got to get paid. All these things got to take place. You got to change the oil in the car, There's so many things that have to be done that take up a lot of our time. Got to cook dinner. Got to attend this meeting. All of these things, they are things that we must do to sustain life in terms of practicality, but we need to make more time for evangelism. So how much time? Well, the truth is that we don't need much time to evangelize. You can evangelize while you're at the lube rack, wherever you get your oil change. You can evangelize at the grocery store. The point is that we take the gospel with us wherever we go, and we evangelize. We are walking evangelists, if that makes sense. That's what a witness is. That's someone that is living the life, coram Deo, in the sight of God, in the face of God, and walking out the faith. And we evangelize wherever we're at. That's the key to other things may seem more important. Well, the gospel is the most important thing of all, because we're dealing with the eternity of men's souls here. That's the main thing. That's the thing we need to be concerned with. So, other things, please hear me when I say this. The gospel is the most important thing. It's the most important thing. It's the most important news. Christ is the most important figure throughout history. We've got to share the gospel. Make evangelism a priority in your daily routine, in your hourly routine. It's not as easy as it sounds, but when we intentionally do these things, it will start to get a sort of a rhythm where you evangelize no matter what. Okay? That's what I want to stress to you. Basic excuse number 5, I don't know non-Christians. Well, again, this may work for pastors that are probably not my pastor, but I don't know about your pastor, but the point is that with this, I don't know non-Christians doesn't fly. And maybe you are a pastor or a teacher, or somebody that is surrounded by an echo chamber, essentially, where everybody else agrees with you about Christianity and things like that. Well, that's not a good enough excuse either. The way we get around this is we go to where the people are. And I don't mean going to the beer joints or to the strip clubs. I mean to go to where people are at, because that's where we need to be to meet the people. There more than likely are non-Christians that go to Walmart. They're more than likely non-Christians that go to your favorite restaurant. So that's what I mean is we go to where the people are. That's one thing that I really stress in my street evangelism, street witnessing of the gospel is I go to where people are at. If there's an event where a lot of people are going to be there, then I generally gravitate towards those type of things because I want to try to reach as many people as I can. So that's kind of what we want to do is we want to, if you don't know any non-Christians, then please go to where there are non-Christians. That's the way around that excuse. So, again, for mine was fear of rejection. Well, they're not rejecting me. They're rejecting Christ. And my fear of their reaction or how they may react is they're not reacting to me. They're reacting to the message of the gospel. And that's something we have to really consider. They're not reacting to us. They're not rejecting us. They're rejecting Christ and His word and His gospel. So, and John 15:20 says that if they hated Christ, they're going to hate you too. There's no way around that. There's going to be friction by sharing the gospel. So we can't let those excuses of rejection and reaction steer us away from evangelizing. The bottom line is this, and I'm going to close now and wrap up. We must shed these excuses. No more excuses. Say it with me. No more excuses. We don't know who's going to be saved. And because of that, we must be bold in our witness. So let's plan to stop not evangelizing. We're going to discuss in the next session what practical steps we can take to implement that process of not evangelizing. So just as a visual reminder to you all, these are the excuses that I wrote down, and my handwriting's terrible. If you went to school with me, you know that I got bad handwriting. So this is what we're going to do now. We're tearing these up. We're doing away with these. No more excuses, okay? Evangelize when times are good, when times are bad, in season, out of season, all the time. Living a life coram Deo and knowing that Christ is the way, the truth, and the life, as John 14:6 says. So thank you for listening. If you've liked this at all, give us a thumbs up, make a comment or two, and share this with your friends, especially the ones that are struggling in the area of evangelism and sharing the gospel, because it's so important, guys. And as I like to always say, the most important thing in this life is where you stand with Jesus Christ. I'm Marty Garcia with Community Baptist Church. Soli Deo Gloria.